Okay, I'm going to start with a quote from the second chapter in my ebook, Obsessions and Exorcisms in the Work of Joyce Carol Oates. And that second chapter is called Poor Whites in the Works of Joyce Carol Oates. And I note that two of Joyce Carol Oates' earliest and most powerful novels, A Garden of Earthly Delights and Them, deal extensively with poverty. Both are specifically about poor whites or white trash. I put that in quotes. And I am what would be referred to as white trash myself. Okay, for during this part of her prolific career, Oates rarely wrote from the perspective of characters other than Caucasians. In a rather more recent novel, Because It Is Bitter and Because It Is My Heart, Oates looks at the overlapping of racism and class in 1950s America. This was written quite a while ago. Oates deserves credit for writing extensively about poor whites, a group that fits so uncomfortably in America's psyche, as this exchange from them Riley illustrates. Are you one of the poor people? I'm one of the poor people. But you're not black. Are you very poor? You can't get much poorer. I thought poor people were mainly black. Okay, and there's that conversation, and then I go on to comment. As the disadvantaged members of the advantaged race, poor whites often cannot identify either with other whites who scorn them as white trash, nor with the third world poor from whom they are often alienated by their own bigotry. I'll say it, I'll emphasize that, as well as by the tendency of third world American poor to identify along racial or ethnic lines. Unlike African Americans and Hispanics, and I would also add Native Americans and perhaps some other groups as well, America's poor whites are not physically distinguishable from the white majority in better off economic groups, and therefore not necessarily stuck for life with their disadvantaged designation. Also, unlike the members of American ethnic minority groups and the general poor in some other cultures, poor whites usually do not hope for improvement for their group as a group. Rather, their goal as individuals is to rise out of their circumstances and away from their fellows. Indeed, it can be felt as a moment of perverse personal triumph when a former white trash can hurl that phrase at someone else, not ironically, as blacks use the N-word to refer to themselves and each other, but in its baldly pejorative sense. Okay, and then I go on to talk about Joyce Carol Oates. But I do want to expand on the points made there. There is a very special problem with poor white people in America. The majority of poor people are white. But they're often mentioned as kind of an afterthought because among a lot of liberals, actually not just among liberals, among the general popular imagination, they do fit uncomfortably into the zeitgeist. Okay, and it's kind of because of the emphasis on discrimination unfair discrimination based along racial lines, it's like they have no excuse for being poor. You're responsible. The idea that you're responsible for what you do with your life means that if you're poor, that's your own fault, especially if you're white. And so that the white poor are not sympathized with by other people, and may also suffer a great deal of self-rejection and self-hatred. I kind of sense that they are themselves responsible for their plight, which tends to feed into things like alcoholism, which